Hey, I just got sales secrets from the number one most hated man on the internet. You're going to love what he shares about how to make more high ticket sales. All right. So listen, put your judgment aside and watch this podcast with Alex Hormozi from Gym Launch.
Alex, welcome to the Early to Ride podcast. I'm going to grill you on sales and marketing and leadership on this. What do you think of that?
I'm terrified.
All right.
I hope I can measure up.
Strike fear into guests from the opening question. That's what I was told was good podcasting. All right. So listen, a quick story. You went from nothing to something. Tell us about how you did that in 20 seconds.
Yeah, cool.
Life story in 20 seconds.
Yeah. Dropped everything, talked to somebody to see if I could model what they were doing. They said, sure. 3 months after spending every waking hour with somebody who's making a lot more than me, I started my own business, which was a gym. Scaled that gym from 0 to 6 locations in 3 years off cash flow using the skills that I had learned over time. Talked to another mentor. That mentor told me to teach other people how I was doing it rather than scaling to 100 locations. So I listened to that mentor because he made more than my other mentor did, and he made more than me. So I said, okay. And so I started doing that. I started flying out to gyms and doing turnarounds for 2 years. And then from there, I packaged those services or that process into a box and taught people how I was doing the gym turnarounds. Mm-hmm. And that's when that was March of 17. And then from there, we've done 110 million in sales over 4.5 or whatever how many years it's been since then. Yeah. So I guess it's almost five. No, March of 17. So four years, whatever the math is. Yeah.
What'd you want to be as a kid when when I grow up, I want to be? What did Alex want to be?
I was a doctor, so I said I was going to be a doctor. It was I don't think I gave it a ton of thought.
When did you want to become an entrepreneur? Once you saw when entrepreneurs had more freedom or more money, or just when you started working for one?
No, so it's funny because I wasn't an entrepreneurial person at all. Like everyone was like, I was slinging lemonade. Like I never did.
Yeah, I was never slinging lemonade either.
Yeah, I went to college. Like, you know what I mean? Like I studied hard. I always got good grades. Like, everybody like, man, school failed me. Like I didn't have any of that stuff. I got a management consulting job for 2 years, hated it. But before that I was pre-med and I was like, I just don't enjoy this. Like I was like, if this is, and then I thought about what being a doctor was, and I was going to probably take over my dad's practice. And I mean, my dad, well, I won't share what he makes, but he makes good money. You know, he's a plastic surgeon. So he makes good money. And I would have been able to start making that at like 30. You know what I mean? Which is like my age now, right? And take it over for him, and that would have been it. And most people, when I tell them like I turned down a very good living to just try something on my own, they're like, I don't know why you do that. I totally would have taken that gig. But I didn't want anyone to ever say that I didn't make my own success, because I knew that it would feel empty. That's an ego thing. The second one was the idea of living in the exact same place for the rest of my life, doing the same surgery over and over again, sounded like murder. And I wanted to be able to make money without trading time. And so that was my big conclusion, was I wanted to make lots and lots of money, and I didn't want to have to work. And I knew no job was going to get that for me. And so the only chance that I had was to go out on my own. So I was like, I have a unrealistic goal, and I can either change my goal or I can give it a shot. I know I'll regret it if I don't take a shot. And so that was ultimately what made me take the jump. But for me, it was terrifying. I'm actually pretty risk averse when it comes to money stuff.
Cool. Well, I mean, there's going to be lots to unpack in this one. I think that one of the things I like to start on first, you were kind enough to share with me a couple podcasts that you did for your own show about the mistakes, the failures that you had in 2019, the failures that you had in 2020. And I was going through them, and I just had so many questions. And I want to start with going through the Hormozi lessons is starting a business and creating an offer. Most people screw it up from moment number one, and they work so hard for like a year and go, I don't know why I can't get past 100K in revenue or first client, or, we've been stuck at 300K for 10 years now. It often comes down to their offers. And it's not like every offer you've had has worked, because you said you've had offers that failed, like your supplement secrets package. So why don't you tell us, like,
I finally figured out how to sell that, by the way.
What's that?
I finally figured out how to sell them.
Oh, good. Well, walk us through like an offer that worked for you, which allowed you to scale so fast. Then why that one failed, and then how you fixed it, and then what the heck does that mean for somebody who has a business whose offer doesn't work?
So, okay, there's definitely a lot to unpack with that. So I'm gonna start with my second one first.
No, it's totally fine.
Which was the supplement one because it's fresh.
Yeah.
So about 2 years ago, when I was making that one, I started Supplements Only Secrets, which is basically a training program that we have that, I think is like the average gym does $14,000 in their first like 30 days working with us, right? Using that coach. That's the average.
Selling supplements?
Yeah, selling supplements. You just
Right.
bolting in how we do our upsells, just like with normal members and new members. Like we have a whole process, and it's really simple. It's really easy to do, and it takes no ad spend. So I'm thinking this thing's going to be a grand slam. The average person is making $14,000. Like, my God, you know what I mean? Like, we could sell their course for $5,000, and then that's just in the first 30 days. And then if they just run that process, 3 or 4 times a year, they make 60 to 80 grand off of a one-time $5,000 investment. Like, doesn't get better than that. They don't have to buy inventory, all that stuff. And I have 5-person sales team, and we could sell it, but it just, you know what I mean? Like, I know one of the hardest things about entrepreneurship is, and I think this comes with maturity, like being in the game long enough, is like, I know how hard something should feel. In the beginning, everything feels hard. So you just don't know when to like stop. But like, as you get more like nuanced, you're like, something's wrong here. You know what I mean? Like, I could grit through this, but something's off. And so we ended up not selling it and just continually bolting it into our primary offer, which is for gyms. But this year, what we did was we actually just sell product and then give the information for free as a result, as long as they buy this much product.
Oh.
And people are far more willing to buy products than they are information services on the phone in a low trust environment. And so like I was 6 inches, you know what I mean, away. So the same exact stuff was delivered. It was just which one was the core offer and which one was the bonus. That's all that basically got switched. I had this information that was the core offer, and then getting, supplements was for free was a bonus. Instead, I was like, no, you need to buy the supplements and the information's free as a bonus. It sounds so silly, but like people buy on Amazon without a salesman all day long. They go and they click because people like tangible goods. General population likes tangible goods, right? Entrepreneurs will buy information, they'll buy time, and they're more complex buyers. But anyways, that was a huge finding for me, and it was simply tweaking that offer. And then obviously we give them 50% off that day, and a couple other incentives to get them to take action. But that was huge for us.
And who came up with that solution? Was that you? Was that your team?
That was actually my director of growth.
Okay. So just by you guys thinking about, oh my goodness, how can we do this? How can we do this? It wasn't you. I think this is just like a lesson for the entrepreneur. Like we have a lot of good ideas. We don't have all the good ideas. And was it in a meeting? Was it in a brainstorming session, or just one day he was in the shower and aha?
So I think it was more like he was getting, he was like, we tried to sell the info, that didn't work. So it's like, well, why don't we just give it to them for free? Because if they sell product, they'll end up making money. You know what I mean? Just indirectly, let's front the labor for free and get people to, it was iterative, basically, is the answer. And some people were successful, but he noticed that the people who ended up buying products were successful. And so then he was like, well, shoot, I'll just sell them the products and then coach them. And then that quickly evolved into that's what the offer is. Because we looked at the easiest way to do this retroactively is, okay, let's look at 100 prospects we brought in. Here's the 15 that were really successful. What did these 15 do that the other ones didn't? Great, let's try and force everyone to do what these 15 did as part of our core offer. And so that's kind of how we stumbled into that. But that was a huge breakthrough for us from an offer structure standpoint.
Cool. In that lessons podcast, one of the things you said was all products must solve pain if they're going to be a massive success.
Yeah.
How has that applied to your offers? And when you work with gyms that were struggling, was that the reason that they were struggling? Was that one of the reasons they were struggling?
The reason that most gyms struggle is because they're not that good
in delivering results or anything.
The experience that they have.
Got it.
Like, if we're being real, if you go to a restaurant and the food's mind blowing, you'd go back and you'd also tell your friends. Mm-hmm. That's like good business. The problem is every business owner that you talk to, especially small business owners, says our delivery is great. We just can't get people in the door. They all say the same thing, right? And the reality is that if your delivery were actually that great, you wouldn't have enough space for people.
Right.
And the thing is that what you think is exceptional is actually just average.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to a gym here in Miami. I don't know if you've ever been to Anatomy here. They have 4 locations.
Oh, cool.
They have their shirts on every trainer. It says culture is everything. You go in there and they're the nicest people. They go out of their way. You know, if you've lost your towel, they tell, and they have another towel in your hand before you're like, what the heck just happened there?
Right.
And it really is fantastic. And it's so good that what have I done? I've told everybody about it. I'm telling everybody about it on your podcast. So yeah, there you go. It's exactly the thing. But back to the all products must solve pain if they're going to be a massive success. What the heck does that mean?
So that's the reality, right? But the person that I'm selling to doesn't have the perspective from which to make a judgment. They don't have that level of awareness. They don't have that level of knowledge. They have beliefs that limit them for whatever reason from seeing that reality. And so I have to meet them where they are. And so we tell a story that I call the garlic and the ham. It'll take 60 seconds, but you'll probably remember it for the audience, which is there's a little boy, he gets a dog, all right? It's very meaningful to him. This is his first real responsibility. His dad goes to work and, he's hanging out playing with the dog and he realizes the dog has ticks. And he's like, oh my God, the dog has ticks. My dad's going to think I'm a bad, taking care of person, what a caregiver. And so he goes to his grandmother who he's at home with. And he's like, well, what do I do with how do I get rid of the ticks? And she says, mijo. She's like, give the dog some garlic and then he'll eat it and he'll sweat out some garlic and then the ticks will go away. He's like, okay. So he takes the garlic, goes to the dog, puts in the dog's face and the dog's like, sniffing. He's like, he doesn't want to eat it. Right. So he goes back to his grandmother and says, hey, the garlic didn't work. He doesn't want to eat it. And she says, oh, she's like, you have to wrap it in the ham. You have to wrap that garlic in the ham. Now go back to the dog. So he wraps it in the ham, goes back to the dog eats it. A couple minutes later, the ticks crawl up the wall and he realizes that the dog's fine, the kid is saved, and everything's happy. And so the moral of the story is that you have to give people what they want, not what they need. And so you have to give them the ham, not the garlic, right? Now they're going to eat the garlic because they're going to start working with you. And once you gain trust, you can say, hey, by the way, I think your product sucks. And I think your retention's terrible. And that's probably the reason that your gym is struggling, right? But I'm not going to say it on the first call because it's like telling a lady that her metabolism actually isn't slow. It's because she snacks in between meals and doesn't even consciously know what she's eating, right? And so I can't say that because she's going to disagree with me, which is not relevant. And then now she doesn't like me, right? But instead I say, you know what? Let's meet you where you're at. You need more leads. Let's get you more leads because you've got an amazing product and people just need to know about it, right? And so that's the pain that they believe they're experiencing.
Exactly. So, Dan Kennedy, what would he say? He would say, sell them what they want, give them what they need, sort of thing. Is that kind of applying in this one?
Totally. It's 100%.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when you do have an offer that fails, or when you have had any setbacks in your business, and we all have many of them, how do you bounce back?
I try and figure out I try and learn. I mean, just because I think we all become students of the game. And so it's like, what was missing on this? Right.
So
like,
you simply look at it, a failure as not really a failure, just like a lesson.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm wildly curious. I'm like, why? Because we have all this knowledge. We're really good at making offers and marketing. So we should, but everyone who knows this, there's so many nuances. There's cultural nuances. There's sub-market nuances. There's all these tiny little aspects that can tweak the effectiveness of an offer.
So when you also said everyone hates change, and that I think you're referring to another offer that you had made or some other aspect of a failure. Why is it that we hate change? Why is it that we want to keep on using the same version of Hotmail that came out in 1999 or the same? We just hate it when Facebook updates. Why do people hate change? And then if you're selling somebody change, how do you get them to buy into that?
Wow, this is a deep question. So I'd say there's two halves to that. So, why do we hate change? I think that people crave predictability and control. And so they want to that's why people don't like crazy people, because they're not predictable, right? You like certain people because exactly, you know how the night's going to go. It's probably going to be okay or whatever it is, right? And we try and exert control over our surroundings so that we can, again, try and predict, right? Because we don't like change, right? We're rational. In terms of the second half of the question was, how do we get someone to be willing? Yeah. How do we get them to buy in? I think it's much more about investment. So there's the qualification process and the investment from the prospect. By the way, these are great questions. I don't think I've ever been asked any of these questions on a podcast, so it's wonderful. But yeah, so it's the qualification of the prospect will increase the quality of the product and the result. So if I sell to smarter, better people, I'll get better results from my product simply because I'm disqualifying the numbnuts, right?
Yeah.
And so the qualifications, and then if I can get someone to spend, $20,000 versus $1, I'll probably get a far more invested person. And so I see it as the obligation of the coach or the company to get the person invested, so that, like, I believe sales is the first step of actually creating an intervention. Like, you have to sell them on the change before they'll even do it.
Yeah. So recently you were talking about sales with our mutual friend, Jason Capital, and his podcast. And I wrote these down. I shared them with my email list because I thought they were so powerful. And it was 3 things a prospect needs to believe in order to buy. And the first one was that a product solves their problem in the way they want it to be solved. So essentially we've pretty much covered that one, in that if somebody comes to you and their business is not growing, and you're like, oh, you just have to improve the experience and the retention, and it'll be better. But they think it's leads. You'll never succeed if you try to sell them anything other than that.
If I want to have a girl who's trying to lose weight and she wants to buy supplements to lose weight, and I try and sell her a gym membership, they both will, in her mind, help her lose weight. But the one that she wants to do is a supplement. So I should sell her supplements.
Yeah. Okay.
It's figuring that out. And it's hard. We had to learn this the hard way. A fun anecdote for this. In the gyms, people will come in, we'll say, hey, do you want to buy our stuff? They'll say no. We say, how about this? Just as a benefit for coming in, why don't you come in for a free nutrition consult? Because we still just want to help you out. They come in for a nutrition consult, average ticket's $350 for supplement sales, to people who said no.
Wow.
And it's higher than people who said yes.
Why?
Well, one, they didn't spend any money on the first transaction. 2, right? It's probably, I don't want to say a lazier person, but somebody who wants a more magic pill.
Yeah.
But that's leaked revenue that so many businesses are not doing, is saying like, well, is, and like not being awkward on the sales call. It's like, can we just help you anyways? Like, you're here, you still want to solve the problem, right? Maybe the first thing, maybe it's too big of a commitment right now, or doesn't work with the schedule. That's fine. Like, can we just do this for free? And then you can solve their problem another way, create more revenue from sawdust.
Yeah, I love that. The second thing that a prospect needs, according to you, is that they need to trust the company.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think a lot of people think about that, but what does that mean, and what does that look like?
So I think it's like, that's the brand authority. That's the stuff that gets developed over time. And of course, that's not the get rich quick, answer. But the reality is that the reason that these brands that exist sell for so much more money and are literally more valuable is because that brand equity exists. They have mind share. So people are like, well, I know, I've heard of Verizon. You know what I mean? They're not flash in the pan. They're not going tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you, 123, cell phone, I don't know who you are, calling out of, Phoenix, Arizona, trying to sell me, like
Phoenix, all the bad apples.
Right, all the bad. Yeah, Phoenix and Florida, man. But it's the trust piece. I mean, you could even probably go as far as to say that like all sales are simply a lack of trust at the bottom. Like, because if you had absolute trust, then someone would say, you know what, I thought I needed supplements, but if you think that I really need this, then I'll do it. Right? Yeah. If you get absolute trust. So I think these are kind of like the step below that, which is, if you have less trust in the situation, then these are the 3 that have to be solved.
Yeah. Okay. And then, well, the third thing that you had in that list is they need to trust the salesperson. And you said if they need to think about it, that means they don't trust you. So, if I'm Joe Bob and I'm getting on a sales call, or I'm in person, or I'm knocking doors or whatever, how the heck do I develop trust as quickly as possible and keep that trust throughout the entire process?
Gosh.
And what's the worst thing that I could do to totally blow the trust even if I have a great offer, a great price point, and yet I screw it up? How do people screw the trust aspect up?
Usually they just talk and don't listen. I think not listening is probably the number one way to destroy trust, because then they know that you don't care.
Got it.
Because you're not listening to what they're saying. So why, so if this is my first experience with you, then why do I expect anything after this to be better than what this should be my first and best experience? They don't listen.
Right.
But in terms of trust, like trust is built subconsciously, right? And so the words that we say are the logic, how we say them is the emotion, right? It's the emotional influence. And so there's two aspects to how you say words. There's the tone and the emphasis. So I'll give you a quick and fun example. So I didn't say he hit his wife. 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 One fucking sentence.
Yeah.
9 meanings, right? And then if I say, for example, I'm on the phone and I say, "Hey, I'm looking for Craig," or like, "Hey, Craig," you automatically are like, if I'm like, "Hey, Craig, it's Alex." Pause. Emphasis goes up. Question. It's implied I didn't actually ask you a question, right? But you're like, your brain knows that you need to answer. Like, and you're thinking, you're racing because you're like, who the fuck is Alex?
Yeah,
right? Because like it's exactly what it is. I'm
Which
like,
one?
right. I'm like, from 123 Fitness. And you're like, what? But like, because I asked another question, and it's like I'm implying that you should know what I'm talking about. So you're gonna pause and give me the extra time because I asked 2 questions, only my tone, right?
I remember when Jordan Belfort taught me that. Like, I went to his Jordan Belfort seminar in like
Yeah.
2011 with
Yeah.
Joel Marion. I was
Yeah.
like, "Hey, this is," and he has that nasal tone. He goes,
Yeah.
"Hey, this is Jordan Belfort."
Yeah.
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
You tell me.
Yeah.
You're the guy that called me and claimed to be Jordan Belfort.
But I'm
Okay.
telling you, like, I actually, so I used to teach my sales teams before I went through his thing. And then when I saw that, I was like, well, you know, you do it enough times, like it's this, you know, I mean, the truth is the truth. But
Did
like,
you do when you were younger, did you do door-to-door sales, or was it just gym floor sales where you
Yeah.
kind of cut your chops?
Yeah, it was all face-to-face local leads. That's all I did.
Yeah. In the gym.
Yep. In the gym,
Yeah.
face-to-face. I think I did 4,000 sales consults when I looked at the CRM. So it's like I had a lot of reps. I was fortunate because it was in the very early days of Facebook marketing. So we were just getting so many, like I had 20 consults a day, and that's what I did. I just sold all day long. And so, anywho, the question, the original
You
question.
ran, but here's the thing is you ran 20 experiments a day. If you look at
Right.
it that way, right? And it's like, okay, if you do 20 iterations in a day, you're going to become pretty good pretty quick, and then you're going to be able to start testing things out, and then you're going to be able to do those add-ons, and next thing you know, like that's why you grew so quick.
Yeah, because when we actually started teaching people, we knew what we were talking about. And I think that ultimately, like the depth that you dig the well is how it's the foundation for how tall the pyramid gets. Right. So a lot of people, you know, they don't actually have any skills, and they learn one little trick, and then they make $5,000 a month. You know what I mean? And they're like, I don't know why I can't get past $5,000 a month. I'm like, you're just not that good. Like, you just don't, like, you actually aren't that good at the skill that you sell. Like, that's what it is, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So how do you develop trust? You have rapid rapport. You know, there's so many subtle cues in terms of how you introduce yourself, how like it depends if you're in person or on the phone. If you're in person, where you sit in the room, you want to sit not across from them, you want to sit adjacent to them on the same side, right? You want to be talking kind of like friends, because subconsciously they see you as an ally. You know, before, like, there's, you know, like before you even meet with them, like I used to do a cartwheel before I'd shake anyone's hands when they came to the gym.
Oh, cool.
Swear to God. And they were
like where they could see you, or just for your own internal state?
They'd walk into the gym, they'd wait for me. I'd give them an iPad so they could flip through testimonials and stuff, with a wall of 5,000 testimonials. And then they'd be like, Alex will be right out to see you. And I would have a clipboard sitting there, that I would do my cartwheel, and I'd come out and be like, hey, I bet you that was the weirdest intro you've ever had to a gym. Come on in. We're a lot of fun here. And then I would give them the tour. And I would literally walk in, turn around, and I'd be like, world's shortest gym tour. Not so bad, right? All right, let's sit down and get to the good stuff. Like, why are you here? Right? It's like, just like that. They're like, man, this guy's fun.
Huh. Interesting.
This guy's in a good mood. If I come here, I will also be in a good mood. Because ultimately, I feel bad about myself.
Well,
right?
I was never able to do a cartwheel. So would I also then somehow magically be able to do cartwheels if I went to your gym?
You could probably do an ugly cartwheel and be even better.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm kind of down with that.
Yeah. So
there you go. All right. So you did those, 20 consults, 4,000 a day, 20 a day, 4,000 over the time.
Yeah.
Is there anything else aside from those 3 tips that you shared there that you would really say is important in high ticket sales? So, the consults in the gym were medium ticket maybe, and then you moved up, like I know in Gym Launch you sell some really high ticket programs.
Yeah.
Was there any change between the two?
I mean, sales wise, no.
Okay.
It's just that we're selling, it's just most people value, making $200,000 a year a lot more than they value losing 20 pounds.
Yeah.
That's what they do. But sales wise, it's not that different.
And then how do you, when it comes to the classic objections, like I got to talk to my spouse or whoever, I need to think about it. Do you have a payment plan? Like, all that sort of stuff. Any advice on like, how do you guys do it? I mean, I love hearing about objection handling. So what's your team's approach?
So if you're selling B2C versus B2B, if you're selling B2B, which is high ticket, then the value component is usually the easiest thing to describe, right? Like, is it worth it, right? Well, it's usually it should be obvious that it's worth it. The problem is you don't believe me, right? If I say I can make you 200 grand and it costs you 20, is it worth it? Obviously. So it's just, what do you need to see to believe that this would be possible for you, right? Sometimes just asking the question. We'll get around a lot of obstacles. And the thing is at some point, like this is me just even selling it the way I normally would. It'd be like, at what point after 1,000 testimonials is it more unreasonable for you to not believe than to believe?
Right.
Like, at what point does it become less, is it more, I'm being the unreasonable one versus you being the unreasonable one? Like, what else would you need to say? Because if you have no criteria for making a decision, then there's no way anything will ever make you move forward, and you'll never be able to solve this problem.
Right.
So the question is, what would make you move forward? And then if they're like, I guess you're right, I think I'm just afraid. And you're like, then that makes you just like everyone else who signs up and crushes it. Because if you're afraid, it means it's not afraid. You're just excited. You're just nervous because you haven't done it before. And of course you haven't done it before. Why would you? That's why you're here, right? And that's why you're paying us, because we have done it before. We've done it 1,000 times. We can help you through it, right?
Yeah.
Notice the intonations in the voice change.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if I was reading a script and I was like, that's why we're going to be here with you every step of the way to make sure that you're going to be successful.
Hello, robot Alex.
It sounds weird, right? But there's a lot of interpersonal understanding that gets communicated with how we speak. So objection overcomes, rather than drilling like price overcomes and spouse overcomes and those things. Fundamentally, I think it's much better to understand the theory, because if you understand the theory of why it works, then you can construct your own kind of obstacle overcomes for any of them. So price is a value question, right? And so if you're selling B2C, it's even like, that's where the value is usually the harder part. B2B, it's the trust that's the harder part, right? Mm-hmm. Like people who are selling weight loss, they believe that if they stop eating shit and move, they're going to lose weight. They just don't know if it's worth it, right? So you have to agitate the pain to stop the value. So I for everyone who's listening, if I were to say, hey, here's the keys to my Bentley, it's $5,000, and I'll give it to you right now, I don't care how much money you have, you'd find a way to get $5,000 because it's worth it. And so that means that every prospect you get on the phone with has a way to get you the money if they think it's worth it. And so if you can approach the sales calls like that, then you'll be able to close a lot more deals. And if you can encompass the belief that rich people have money and therefore they will give it to me, and poor people don't have money because they give it away all the time, which means it should be easier for them to give it to me. So no matter whether someone's rich or poor, either way I win. And so the beliefs that you have to have as a salesperson. But the people who win at the end of the day is always the one who's the most certain. And that's like something that people say, but I think is wildly underlooked. Like if you give me someone who's convicted, I don't need to give them a script. I need to give them a couple milestones to hit, and they're going to sell, right? Because they believe.
Here's a great example of this. So, I have 3 guys on my sales team. They're good. They're all past clients. They love the program. My fiance just started taking sales calls. Every single sales call, she makes the sale because she's the biggest fan of the 4 people that take sales calls for my team. She's so certain because she believes in me, and it's like it's almost like she doesn't even try on the sales calls, and she wins every time.
So I have a training that I cover how to sell expensive stuff, right? And so what we talked about earlier was like the 3 things that they have to believe, right? But in terms of when I teach sales, like there's 3 big pieces. One is what questions to ask. The second is how to ask them, right? And the third one is how to duplicate that in other people, right? So the questions to ask, right, is what we call the closer framework. So clarify, it's an acronym. So clarify why they're there, label them with a problem, overview their past experiences, which is a pain cycle. It's like, what'd you do? How'd that work for you? Why didn't it work? What else did you try? Right? And you just keep until eventually they're like, that's everything I've tried. I'm like, man, that must have been hard for you. Got it. Well, you know what? Good news, bring you back up. I think that you might be a really good fit for the program. You want to hear about it? Cool. Then we can transition to S, which is sellification, because we're not selling the program, the macros, the workouts, the food that you're going to have to eat, and how you got to wake up at 4 a.m. and how you're going to be sore. We're not selling the programming, right? We're selling the result. We're selling the bikini. We're not selling the plane flight. We're selling the vacation. We're selling Maui, not TSA, baggage check, like wait in line, guy farts next to you. Like, we're not selling all that stuff, but most people do. They're like, this is week 1, we're going to do this. Week 2, we're going to do this in our marriage therapy program. Like, no one cares. At the end of the 16-week programs, you're going to be fucking like rabbits, and you won't even remember my name because you don't even show up for the second half of the training, which happens half the time. Right. And so that's S, and then explain away their concerns, because every logical person has them, and then reinforce their decision, right? After they do buy, this is something we added later on, probably 2 years into me teaching sales stuff, was reinforce the decision, because some people have cold feet, and it's okay. So it's like, hey, you made the right call, you're in the right place. So those are the objectives that we're trying to clarify, right? When we're trying to say the words the right way, I say you can either trick yourself or you can train yourself, right? If you train yourself, it's learning the different tones, right? And I need to lower my voice so that you know that what I'm saying right now is incredibly important, right? When I raise my voice, I can get you more excited again, right? You can train.
I thought I was just going deaf there for a second. What?
Or you can trick yourself, and I think and my personal belief is that we all kind of just need to trick ourselves, which is you need to just believe in the product, right? You just need to believe in the product, because conviction will always fix your tone. Your girlfriend is a perfect example of this, and the headline that I use for that section is how a brand new person who's a complete believer can outsell a seasoned sales pro 7 days a week and twice on Sunday by simply controlling the way they say words, right? And she says the words the right way because she says them like somebody who actually believes them. And so I used to do some sales consulting, like intermittently, briefly. And I did this consulting gig with a mortgage broker, mortgage leads market agency. So they sold leads to mortgage brokers, and an 8 or 9 person sales team. They had me fly in. First half of the day I reworked their script and the offer and all that kind of stuff. And then the second half of the day they were like, "Can you do like Glengarry Glen Ross and just like amp up the team?" And I was like, "We'll see. I'll find out." And I was like, "Who's the guy you're having the most trouble with?" And this guy, John. And I was like, "All right." So I walk around the floor, and before I even hand out the scripts, I was like, "John, how good are the leads that you guys sell?" He was like, "Well, I mean, they're sort of," and I was like, "I'm good, thank you." He didn't he couldn't even answer the question and say they're fucking awesome. That's all he needed to say. Because if he truly believed, then he'd be like, "Oh man, these things are amazing. I'm studying for my real estate exam right now because I want to start using these so I can make some deals on the side while I'm here. And hopefully I'll be able to make more doing the real estate gig. But for right now, I'm getting all these realtors on. My aunt is a realtor, so she's got on board, and we're trying to do some sort of rev share commission because these leads are so hot. It's like there's so many buyers in these things, right?" I was like, if you truly believed, you say it different. because most people, I believe, are ethical. And so the way that you have to do this, and the thing is you have to be a realistic person. You can't lie. You have to fix your product, which we talked about in the first half of this call, right?
Yeah.
You have to fix your product. But from a sales team perspective, and if you're selling for yourself, the problem when you're an entrepreneur is you hear all the good and the bad, and the bad sticks with you a lot more, right? And the fundamental thing is every person who signs up for a gym, a lot of people don't lose weight. A lot of people want to lose weight. A lot of people don't show up. And especially if you have any kind of service where somebody has to do something to see a result, right? You're always going to have that. And so what I've boiled it down to is, what is your intention? Because there are people who sign people, there are people who have absolutely amazing intentions. And whether or not someone is good or bad, you know what I mean? Like, as soon as you have less than 100% success rate, that means that you are accepting that there's a risk that somebody who's on the other side of the line. So whether it's 99, 50, 2%, it's all subjective after you're not at 100%, which basically means all of us are. And so the way to get around that, right, or at least increase your conviction, is A, to understand it logically, but B, to remind yourself of the victories of the clients you have served, right? And so for us, our team reads those testimonials every morning of the last week. So all the people that signed up last week, those same people, like, hey, remember John from last week? Boom, made 12 grand in his first week with us. Remember Sarah? Boom. And so when they say that, they can get on the call and be like, dude, you got to get on. Like, what are you waiting for?
Wow, that is one thing I'm not doing with my team, and that's just fantastic, right?
It matters more than everything. Because if they believe, they will. I mean, fundamentally, sales is just a transference of belief.
Sure.
And you know that. I'm not saying anything you don't know. But like, so I have to fill their cup up so they have something to transfer. They can have all the skills in the world.
Love it. That's so good. That's so good. Another thing that you said there briefly was like, people lose faith in their decision after, I don't know, it was like 2 weeks or something. And in the interview with Jason, you said that the time frame when most clients will decide to stay or leave is between the sales call and first touch point with your product or service. To improve this connection, handwritten cards, clarity about their homework, whatever it is, like, what can we do in our businesses to make people go, yeah, man, ordering that Lamborghini was the right idea instead of ordering, the Porsche, that cost twice as much. I must have made the right decision, even though I'm not getting it for 3 months, and I could have got the Porsche in a month. Like, how do you fix that?
So the nice thing about having the software company that we own is that there's so much literature and onboarding and activation in the software community that's so quantified that, like, no one in like our world, you know what I mean, like, applies that stuff. And so, like, we just started applying all the metrics that we knew from them. And candidly, a lot of it's soft touch stuff. But like, all the sales guys need to take notes on the prospects when they ask the questions. What is your goal? Write it down. What are the things you've tried in the past? Write it down. Right. It also makes you better listening because you actually have to take notes.
Yeah.
But beyond that, the person who's going to onboard them or welcome to them to the community is going to be like, hey, John, sounds like you've done this in the past. Totally understand, but you're excited about this. And this is the biggest problem that you said that you're having in your business. And so that's what we're going to be focused on for the next X period of time. Did I get that right? Awesome. They're like, holy shit, like, in your daughter's name, Sarah, and like in your dog's name, Skip. And they're like, holy cow. Right. And so from the time that the salesman closes the deal, they'll get, the everything has to be so tightly choreographed from there, especially that first like 2 to 4 weeks has to be airtight. Like, there should never be blank space of like, there's never a call where they don't know when the next call is happening. There should never be any time where they're not getting an email and a phone call and a text to remind them of those things that are going to happen next, because people don't listen, right? Or they forget or whatever, they're busy. Right. And so every single one of these communications is duplicated in multiple ways, distributed across channels. And honestly, I would say one of the biggest things that we have that has been unreal for us is like, the person who does your onboarding is what they are judging your entire company on. And so many of us, just like, I know that I did this in the beginning, I just hired, frontline support to just take over, this is the onboarding where I check the process off. I cannot tell you the difference in conversions on the back end by putting a true stud in there, paid 2-3 times what you would normally pay someone in that role to absolutely wow customers.
Wow. That's awesome.
Like, it will make you so much more for just focusing on that first touch point. I mean, think about it. Like, you buy something expensive, and the first thing that you go, like, I mean, if you think of it from a customer standpoint, like, sometimes we forget, like, that we are also customers of so many other businesses.
Yeah.
Like, if I hopped on a sales call and I get on the first call and they're like, "Hey, Alex, I looked through your website. It looks like you had these things. You told, Jerry earlier that this was your boom, 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 boom." I'm like, these guys, like, literally, they just bought themselves 2 more months from me of
Yeah.
like forgiveness, right? Because, like, we're human. Businesses are going to mess up, and because we're made of humans, right? But if I can buy myself wiggle room, if I can buy myself goodwill with just writing down the information, regurgitating back to them, showing that we actually care, and then making it a little bit more customized for them, just a little bit. Just like, you said, this is your thing. You're definitely going to want to check out this piece. It's going to really help you out. Wow. Thanks. Right. And then they get the handwritten card after that call, and they're like, whoa, these guys are really legit.
Got it. Perfect. That's amazing, man. Oh, so helpful. So helpful. I feel like I should pay you for this, but I'm not going to. So, the now when you one of the things you mentioned, we're going to switch gears from sales a little bit. You said you owned a software company. I know you owned the gym launch. There was a couple other things that you had shared with me in our other call the other week that you do, and yet in the 2019 mistakes or 2020 mistakes, you said, "Yeah, I have too many businesses." And listen, so do I. So do I. I was on a sales, trying to sell 3 different things today. Why do we tell people not to have so many businesses, and yet we can't follow our own advice?
I have finally had a breakthrough for this, so I'm very excited to share it with you.
Okay.
So, the decision to start Prestige Labs, when I started it, given the skill set and experience that I had at the time, was the wrong call. Given the experience and the skill set that I had at the time, it was the wrong call. I now have 3 companies, and I have directors who can drive growth. I have people who can actually grow the business without me. It's my understanding of how to run a business has expanded dramatically. I would say that this is the first season of my life that I actually feel like a business owner, like, genuinely, where, like, I don't really need to do, like, the business, not only will it continue to run, but it will continue to grow and innovate without me. And that took a long time to get to. And honestly, it also took a dip in revenue for all of these new people to come in, for me to invest in them, not take over and, try and save the ship and all that stuff, getting the wrong people off the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you a quick story, because I think it'll drive this point home. So the quick story is, for everybody who's listening, if you're not already doing $1 to $10 million a year, don't think about starting another business. You're not going to try and pick 3 and see which one works. They will all not work because you have 3 of them. So pick one, commit to it, and be done with it until you're, there. The skill that will be lacking is your ability to find talent. And the thing is just like I said earlier, you have to have a perspective from which to make a judgment on talent. And the problem is, none of us have it, or most of us don't have it, because we don't know what it looks like. I didn't work in a big high-level corporate thing, so I don't know what true A players look like. I just know me, right? And so that's the only, like, comparative judgment I have. And I know other small business owners at the time who also didn't have A players. So there was really nothing to compare people against. I had my strategic meeting a week or 2 ago, and a new hire that we have here, who actually, she's not new, excuse me, she's 2 years old, but, like, she's been working up the ranks, and now she got to come to the strategic meeting. So she's new to that level. And normally, if she had been given a directive to find a new revenue stream for that specific business, right, which is our supplement brand, she said, "I get a lot of people who ask me for apparel." We said, "Okay, well, go see if you can find some apparel companies that we can manufacture, since so many people are asking for them." What most employees would do in this situation is they would Google apparel companies, they would look at 5, they'd pick the one with, they would present the 2 or 3 that had the cheapest prices and say, "Here are the apparel companies, which one do you want me to use?" And if they're an appointed position authority, they would probably just pick the cheapest one, and then order shirts from them and be like, "Cool, we have an apparel line." What this girl did was she went to 20 of them, ordered samples from all of them, got all the samples, and word for word, in front of my entire executive team, said, "I'm not sending that out to my customers." She's like, "The quality was horrible." She's like, "I would never be seen dead at that." She's like, but I did find another company. They don't do the shipping and the manufacturing, but we can order from these ones. The material here is so much better, and they're cute and they're fun, and like I would totally wear this stuff. And I've already got organized with a company that can do the printing, so I just need to know what budget you guys can give me, and then I'll figure out how many pieces that we can order.
Boom.
And that was the difference between an A player and a B player. And most people, if you're honest with yourself right now, if you ask somebody in your company to go do something like that, they probably would have done with the first person. That's 90% of people would have been like, all right, I'm here, my job, they told me to find an apparel company. I picked 5. This is the one of the best, and here you go. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they would have done. And the thing is you don't know any better, because it's hard to think of something that isn't happening, right? But systematically now, over the last however many 18 months, I finally feel like we're almost there. We're not there, but we're almost there, where we have people in positions that they're actively growing the business. So this isn't me just saying it, being like, oh, you've probably heard it. My team's great. My team's highly flawed. I have definitely things people need to work on, all that stuff. But they have demonstrably grown each of their product lines in ways that I'm not involved in at all. I don't even know how they did it. They're doing new acquisition channels. The whole outbound team that we have on Gym Launch, I don't know how any of it works. I didn't set up the data mining. I didn't set up the list. I didn't create the scripts. I didn't create the call team. I didn't create the recruitment process. I created none of it. I told one high-level leader, I think we should have an outbound process. I need you to figure it out. He said, okay. And that's what happened. And it's half of our volume right now. So that's like being able to figure out how to incentivize, attract, and find rainmakers, entrepreneurs who really grow, actually is the hardest thing for every business. And I think that now my businesses are worth significantly more because they actually are businesses. They generate cash flow every month, and I'm not required. And that has taken a long time to get to. And it's hard to communicate. If I could go back in time and say, hey, 2018-year-old self, I wouldn't even get it, because I hired a director then. I hired somebody and it said director of development. Same thing. It's just the wrong guy. And that's what's so hard, is recognizing this is a B, and you have to let good people go to have great people.
Say that again, because I think that
you have to let good people go to have great people.
Yeah. That's a hard one. It's a hard one because most, yeah. And most of us will say, oh man, I really like that guy.
I love Rosie. Right? I love Rosie, but it's not fair to the rest of the team. It's not fair to this company.
And Rosie's good. She'll go get another job. So like,
and there's maybe a company that where Rosie goes, she will be an A, but just not here.
That's great. Before the call, you said that there were some other, are there other breakthroughs that you had in the leadership, hiring, stuff like that you were super excited to share?
That was the thing that I was excited to share.
Do a cartwheel and then tell us.
Yeah, that was what I'm excited to share. I'm super, I don't even think I've said this. I'm super proud of the team that we have now. Yeah. And I don't think I've ever said that.
Well, I'm certainly should be, with the way that it sounds like you've got it going on there.
It's
now.
been so long.
Yeah.
And it's been painful. It's been so painful. I mean, all they need to do is look at my Glassdoor reviews. I've done layoffs before because I hired the wrong person. They literally, I had a department that had 28 people in it because I hired the wrong leader, and they hired 28 people for support. There are 3 people who are on that same support team now. Wow. With better efficiency. like holy cow. Right? How can this even happen? And so I'll give you one rule of thumb that I have for the entrepreneurs in the room who have layers of management. What I have now, because I've gone too far away, I've gone too close, right? Because it's funny, because as Americans, a lot of times we want to solve problems. Yeah. But what it really is we have to manage dichotomies. We can't solve business, right? You manage between micromanagement and being too far removed, right? It's a knife's edge. You don't solve it. You just manage the dichotomy. Right? Variety, consistency, right? You manage it. And the saying that I say to myself to keep myself in check is know where the bodies are buried. And so if I can think about a leader and I don't know what's wrong with their department, I'm too far away.
Okay.
I have to know where the bodies are buried. Because if I hear that, the director's like, oh, everything's great, it's awesome. Nah, it's business. There's always stuff that should be better. And if you literally think there's nothing that can be improved, then like your tolerance is too low. And I'm gonna fork into another thing because it seems like you like this topic. So my belief about the quality of the individuals that sit on the hierarchy of a business is directly proportional to their intolerance. So I believe that the person who should be highest up in the company should have the lowest tolerance for anything but exceptional work. And if there's ever a time where someone is more intolerant for the quality that Gym Launch produces than me, then they should rightfully run the company. And so if you see a department and you see an employee and they have higher standards for what should be expected of customer service, what should be expected of the sales team. Like if someone's on that sales team and the manager's like, and they're coming to you and they're like, dude, why aren't we doing daily trainings? Like, why aren't we doing drills every morning? Like, why aren't we listening to, testimonials? Why aren't we doing a daily recap? Why am I not getting a one-on-one? I'm getting no feedback on my sales calls, right? On how I'm doing. That person might be your manager.
Yeah.
Because they're like, this is the standard I'm expecting. I would be holding it to here. Sometimes it's like, go get it, And so if there's ever someone, and that's how I see it, is like, who here, like the girl I was talking about, who here is going to say, I would never send this out to my customers? Complete ownership.
Yeah. Yeah, that gave me something to think about too. I appreciate that. All right, here, I got one last question for you, and one last question today because I have about 30 left on my list to ask you. This one, I don't think you've ever been asked it, and I'm kind of scared to ask it a little bit, not that scared, so I will ask it. You're not the most liked man on the internet. How do you deal with that?
Am I not the most liked man?
No, I don't think you are.
It's so sad. It depends on who you listen to.
I'm not the most liked man either, but neither of us are The Rock, that's for sure.
No, we're not The Rock. It's because Rock doesn't sell anything.
No, The Rock actually sells a ton.
Well, he promotes.
Yes, I see what there is a difference. Yeah. You're right.
But yeah, how do I do it? Honestly, it's not even a problem, man.
Okay. So you, like when you were younger, it was always no problem? Because a lot of people are offended by the smallest thing, negative feedback to them, right? So
yeah. I mean, I was
just wondering if you eventually did a Jedi mind trick to get over it.
Yeah. So two things. One is the kind of the journey, and then kind of like where I'm currently at with it is you're only bothered by feedback that you believe is true.
Oh, that's a good point.
If I said, Craig, you're a girl, you'd be like, that's ridiculous. I am not. So I give no credence to your comment, right? But if I said, Craig's fulfillment shit, his onboarding's terrible, the girl didn't even know my name, on some level you might be like, I don't know. I have no idea. To everyone who's listening, I have no idea. Just making this up. You on some level you might be like, man, that new girl's probably she's not doing a good job. You know what I mean? And so and then you shrink, right? You cripple inwards because you're like, shit. And so I think the first step is bulletproofing the product. Number one, accepting the fact that it's not perfect. Nothing is, right? But I sleep well at night knowing that I've had 1,400 fucking gyms who left me a testimonial. You know what I mean? I've got more 7-figure gyms than most people even have in their entire fucking programs, right? I have more 7-figure gyms than most franchisors have clients.
Right.
And so I have to accept the fact, what I was saying earlier about if you ever have any kind of thing that has something to do where someone else has to do half the work, if you're in the education space in any way, I'll give you this quote, which is, there are many shitty teachers, but only a terrible student doesn't learn anything.
Right. Okay.
So if I go to class, there's lots of things to learn. It might not be the thing they're talking about, but there's lots of things to learn. You might have had terrible parents growing up, lots of things to learn. There's lots of ways to learn. right? And so the way that I do my heart check is just, what is my intention and what is my commitment to making our product and our service excellent? I can tell you that 3 out of 4 people who start with us for free choose to pay. They weren't sold, they choose to pay. So am I the most hated man on the internet? No. Am I strong in my beliefs? Absolutely. But I like, someone has to, in order, if I do feel something because of someone's question, I want to squash the root, which is there's some aspect of what they said that I believe is true. If someone said Alex is trying to scam gyms, he doesn't care about gym owners, I'm like, it's a fucking moron. I do care about gym owners. It's literally all I do. I've made so much money, I don't need to do this anymore.
Right.
And so I had I'll wrap this with one quick story. I had a media manager who's been in the direct response space for a long time. This was a couple years ago. And he said, when I really got it, like when I really saw why Gym Launch was so successful, it clicked because I was on one of your sales team calls. And one of the sales guys was like, hey man, this guy's got $1,000. Like that's just enough. At the time we're doing 1,000 down was how we did it to start. He's like, it's literally going to be his last dollar. What should I do? And he was like, and you didn't even hesitate. You were like, we're his only shot. Like if he only has $1,000, he's been open for 2 years. Like if he doesn't do this, he's fucked. Yeah. Like he could potentially be fucked if he works with us, but we are by far his absolute best chance of being successful. Because doing what he's doing clearly isn't working.
Right.
And he was like, he's like, because most people would be like, no, it's his last, what? I was like, no, we've got 100 ways to make someone money who's got grit. If he's got grit and he just needs the tactics, then we can help him. Now, if the guy's on life support because he's been smoking and won't put the cigarettes down, then there's nothing I can do about that. But if he didn't know cigarettes were bad for him and he didn't know hamburgers were terrible for him and he just needed a new way because he's really dedicated, then I don't care if he's on life support. We'll start feeding him right now and he'll get up.
Yeah.
And I can say that with absolute conviction. I know it because I've walked it. You know what I mean? And like, I got asked a question. They're like, you seem so certain that you're like, how do you develop that? I'm like, because we fucking did it. You know what I mean? Like I went for 2 years and did gym turnarounds, not fucking 7-figure agency. You know what I mean? Like small, whatever, guru that you see online that says, go buy a course and then become an agency and sell gym owners. I did it for 2 years. I worked guys' front desks. I saw the trainers. I had 6 gyms of my own that I sold before doing 33 turnarounds. Then I ran a mobile sales team while we're doing the turnarounds, right? And then we created more 7-figure gyms than anyone ever has. We sold more gyms than, like, you could take the 3 biggest franchises that you know of and put them together. That's how many gyms we have. And so, like, you don't get there by not knowing what you're doing and not believing in what you're doing. And so, like, if someone's, if anyone has a negative thing, I would say, are they a competitor who has a stake, who has a stake against me? In which case, I don't care what a competitor says. If he's talking about me, he's promoting me, right? Which I appreciate. Thank you. But beyond that, it's like I know what we do and I believe in it. So I know.
I love it. I love it. That was a really, really, really great ending. The only ending of a podcast that I've ever done that is comparable to this one is Sabri's ending. And did you get a chance to connect with him?
Oh yeah, we're in
You're good
in talks.
Yes, good. And I've got another intro to send you in a couple of weeks when I go see Mark. But man, I really appreciate this. This was a lot of light bulb moments for me. So again, I probably owe you some money for this. We'll give you none. And just thank you for being on the show, my man. Thank you for being on the show. Next time, I'm going to ask you about keeping the romance hat on while running a business with your wife, who just sounds amazing. So I know we'll get you back on the show because I have so many other questions to ask you. Two last things I need to ask you is, one, what didn't I ask you that I should have asked you?
That's a good question. It's a good question. I mean, one of my favorite things to talk about is advice for people who are starting.
Okay. We'll get back to that next time too.
It's something that I care about.
Yeah, totally.
We all suffered, and there's just so many better ways.
Right. I mean, don't do what we did. Here's a better way to do it. Okay, so perfect. That'll be a great thing to start off our chat next time. Then we'll get through the romance stuff and your influences like Buffett and Munger and all that good stuff. What's next for you? And then how can people connect with you, get part of your program, etc.?
Yeah. If any of this was valuable, I have a free book. It's alexsbook.com. It's called Gym Launch Secrets. It's really about running a business. The concepts are applied to a gym, but probably as you heard me talk about the sales stuff, like you can swap out the word nutrition and fitness for, lead quality, and like it does, like the concepts of sales. Like there's 35 pages of obstacle overcomes in that book, of I need to think about it. I need to talk to my spouse. I can't afford that. What if XYZ, like all of those things. We have tons in appendix that help you sell no matter what you're selling.
What's the link for that? Is it like Alex, like ALEXS book.com?
Yeah. And you can also find it on Amazon. I've got an audio book there, Gym Launch Secrets. That's if you like that stuff. If you're a gym owner, by all means, you know where to find me. You can just Google us and we'll retarget you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, man. I really, really appreciate chatting with you. It was a lot of fun. You got some belly laughs and also made me think. So I can't ask for much more than that.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the audience.
All right, let me know what you think. Drop a comment down below. Share it with your friends. Let me know what you thought of this episode with Alex, and then make sure to watch the next video here on my YouTube.